Well, welcome to this episode of Did She Really Say That? And you're going to love this conversation today, ladies, because we're talking about shifting businesses. And I'm not talking about, you know, evolving your business or just changing, maybe a couple tweaks to it. I'm talking about a complete shift in a business. And I love this conversation because Christine is joining us and because this is something I found fascinating when I talked to her. She's like, I've run three businesses, closed down two, starting a third one, but she also teaches. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I really want to know kind of like the thought process of a woman entrepreneur that's going through this process. So, what you need to know about Christine is that she is a creative at heart. She's a natural connector of people, and she's very calm in chaos. Like, have you guys ever experienced that? Like, you're just like, things are going on around me. I feel pretty good, right? She generates ideas constantly, which usually means that she has a side project, a side business, or even a side project brewing. Like she can't stop. I love this type of woman, right? And she finds true joy in linking people who can help each other and grow. So she's a connector. You want to get to know her, okay? By day, she serves as a child development specialist at the Early Learning Center, building on a background in private practices working with children facing severe behavioral challenges. She has spent her career helping children, families, and communities thrive, often bringing again that calm, that clarity, and that compassion into what can be seemingly very complex situations. But here's the thing, outside of work, you'll find her biking, hiking, paddleboarding, basically doing anything outdoors that she can because she grounds herself. She's a proud mom, a soon to be grandmother, and a lifelong learner who's always chasing the next adventure. This might resonate with some of you. You're like, yeah, she sounds a little bit like me. She's most proud of her producing an award-winning local cable TV show, completing her ICF life coaching certification, rock climbing, and even flying a, oh my gosh, is that
Cirrus, a
Cirrus plane?
cirrus,
Ah!
seriously.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, you can tell she's done a lot with her life. Yes, right? So whether she's creating, coaching, connecting, or climbing, her whole life leads with curiosity and courage and a deep belief in the human potential. And I can only imagine, Christine, in your line of business, working with kids, that human potential really comes up over and over again. So I'm excited that you're here on this show with us. So thank you for being a yes.
Oh my gosh, thank you for the opportunity. I am so excited. And as said in my bio, I'm a creative connector and I love encouraging people. And I just hope my story will resonate with some women, will help maybe if they're questioning what they're doing, that they realize, okay, I am on the right path, or some that may be fearful, be like, all right, I'm going to make these leaps. So I'm excited to start this discussion.
Yeah, so let's talk about your first couple of businesses. So you talked about you've opened one business, you've had a second business. I know we'll get into your third business, which is kind of like an evolution and really a big shift from what
Yeah.
you've done. So let's talk about your first two businesses and getting those started and what you kind of learned from those.
Yeah, so the first business that I had was in the adult beverage industry, and
You
that
say that
was
like it's a bad thing, like the adult beverage
well,
industry.
it's kind of funny because people, because I've always had my hand in the mix of working with kids. That's always been a piece of my life. So the joke was for a while is that I'd help kids by day and then I'd help the parents by night.
I can see that. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go with
Yep.
that.
It's like,
Okay.
hey, I've been with your kid all day. I get it. You need a bottle of wine. And how that came about is, I was working. We had made a move, and I had been a stay-at-home mom most of my child's young life, and we moved to an area where that was no longer going to be feasible. This is more expensive to live, and so I started working in the beverage industry. Started with Pepsi Company, and then moved over into working for a liquor distributor. And in that, always having a side hustle. And I'm sure I don't, depends on what state you're in, but in Wisconsin, it's legal to give out samples of alcohol in the grocery store. We all know you've seen them out at bars where girls are working, like the bars and stuff. And I thought, man, that looks like fun and a great way to make extra money. So the short version of it is I did that. I worked for a company, moved up really quick, in that company as a side hustle. And then the liquor distributor that I was working for said, why don't you start one? Because the company that we're using isn't that great. I was in a time of my life, I was going through my first divorce, and I kind of had like an FU attitude. And I
Mm.
thought, okay. So I learned everything on the fly. I learned how to set up an LLC. I just like all of it, just learned it. So there were lots of puddles of tears because
Yes.
I'd be like, what am I doing? I don't get all this. But I did it and built that business, had it for 7 years, went from one employee being me to having 20 employees kind of throughout the state. We had several areas. And I just loved it, just growing people who were like nervous being in front of people and just coaching them and helping them just become really great salespeople, shifting the look of the industry because it was very much young, blonde, skinny women. Doesn't mean they can sell anything. And so I started looking at that shift of like, I have really great friends that are all shapes and sizes and ages that would be great at this. And really what you want to happen is sales to happen, because if you sell in a ton of product to a store for an event and then it's all sitting there the next day, that store isn't real happy. So
Right.
it was an uphill battle. I mean, I had some accounts who were like, nope, I'm not going to use you, I want young girls. And I'm like, go ahead, but let me know how much product you sell. And slowly those would come back around and they're like, okay, I get it. I get it. It's about selling. Also, you are alienating your biggest shoppers by having just these young girls. Because if I'm with my husband, there's no way you're going over there sampling.
Nope.
And depending on what mood I'm in, I don't really know if I want to go up to the skinny chick. And so they started seeing that. So that was really exciting to
Mm.
get people to understand, and what our purpose was to sell their product and educate. So I had that one for 7 years, but I was feeling this pull. Like I was on the teeter totter of either I was going to have to take out a substantial loan to get the software that I needed to expand it, or merge with another company. And I was feeling the pull to get back in with kids. So I ended up merging with another company. That was a lesson of very powerful men and me being just me. And I ended up not negotiating as well as I could have, and ended up, unknown to me, I ended up tripling their business in the state of Wisconsin and
Phew.
did not get compensated for that.
Ouch.
But
I'm going to hold you there because I think
yeah,
this is an important piece. Just pause right there for a moment. Now, I think this is interesting because over the last few weeks and even the last month or so, I think there are more women now that are coming into helping women exit strategies around business. So I would say you were probably in a time period where it just didn't exist yet.
no,
But what I will say is that if you're hearing this, don't think you're going to get played as much because this was a time period back when things were shifting and changing. But I will say the landscape around creating exit strategies to help you better, like, have that information is actually more available and more accessible woman to woman now,
mhm,
or probably you did not have that ability or even that access point for that. But that's really interesting that you talked about that because it's a learning curve. Like your things you learn and now you know.
yeah. Yeah, and and that was my own insecurity too. I mean, I had that little intuition of going, I'm showing you my book of business, but you're not showing me yours. And that always, like, that was kind of nagging because they were really big in Illinois. So I'm just assuming that they probably have a bigger book of business than me in Wisconsin. And
Big
it was a
difference.
learning lesson. It was naive, me being naive. I did not get any counsel. Like I just did this and decided. I didn't people after the fact, they're like, what, you merged? Why didn't you talk to me about it? So it's a little, like a lot of little things, insecurity, probably stubbornness for not wanting to get help,
I can do it
all those
myself.
things.
I'll figure this out. They're not going to take
Yep,
advantage
yep,
of
I
me.
can
All
figure
of
it
that.
out. So I mean, it wasn't like anything like financially devastating,
Right.
but it was definitely a moment of, hmm, yeah, I did a lot of why. Like, why did I, like, after the fact, why did I feel that way? Why didn't
Yeah.
I feel like I could have asked? And there was a lot of growth that ended up coming out of that. Um, Hindsight though, a couple of years later, like 2.5 years later, COVID hit.
Mm.
I would have been dead in the water. So I'd rather tell the story. I successfully merged a company and learned some lessons than saying I lost my business due to COVID.
Yeah.
So,
No, and I think, there's a part of you that's like saying, well, could I have questioned? Could I have negotiated? Could I have made some compensation? Not necessarily take it over, but there's that whole piece. And I think what I want women to take away as they're listening to this is that if there's questions to ask them.
yeah,
I think that's
100%.
really coming down to that. It's like we feel like, and I have this too, it's like, oh, but who am I to ask this question? Well, who are you not to ask the
Yeah.
question is
Yeah.
also.
And
So
that's where we see the red flags, right? Then if they come back to us with like some sort of answer that's like shaming or questioning or whatever, that's your red flag of, well, something's not good here.
yeah.
And again, lessons learned,
Yeah.
a lot
Well,
of
and
years.
because I want to give, like, 'cause I know for a lot of women that creating that exit strategy can seem a little scary, or
Yeah.
like letting go of something you've created can seem a little scary. So I like that you bring this up because it's something that I think a lot of us women are going to be going through, especially as the finances start to shift, as we start to inherit businesses and things happen. Like, I want them to know, like, yes, this does happen, and there's definitely support around it, and sometimes it's for the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you
And
talked about, COVID happened and it was for the best because it gave you a whole nother place to go play now.
yeah. And, I'm so much better now about seeking out help and wise counsel, over the years of surrounding just talking it through with somebody first, before you did it. But yeah, lessons learned on that one. Okay. So then, business number two. So like COVID hits, I go back into private practice, working with families, with kids, with, severe behavioral stuff going on. COVID hits. I'm kind of kicking around this idea of like parent coaching. And, I had a friend just kind of start the conversation with me. And he said, well, how do you do what you do? How do you go into these families and 4 months later, it's a completely different family? And I had this brilliant answer of, I don't know. I
Yes.
just do
Yeah.
it. I go in and do it. And he goes, well, it's important for you to figure out how you do that and write it down. So that started this journey of what am I saying? What am I doing? What am I putting in place? Rhythms and routines. And uh, so then I had kind of an idea of like, I would always have parents say, I feel like I'm losing. I feel like I'm losing. And I'm like,
Mm.
I want to help parents feel like they're winning. And then came the idea of parenting game, because sometimes you do feel like you're playing a game with your kids. So started parenting game. Um, During COVID, we were still in that time where the health and wellness departments was a big thing, and they were expanding them and offering resources. And so that was great. I had several companies who were paying me to do webinars for their parents as they're navigating how to be home with their kids.
How to homeschool, how to live with their kids, how to live with
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I had parents throwing money at me, like, can you come and help me with my kid? And I
their
was making six figures. It was great. And then I had the opportunity to, start a local TV show, which was a dream because I had worked in my resume is very unique. So I had worked in TV in the past and loved it. And this was just like a dream to like produce and host, my own show. And so all of that was going on. I was getting on tons of podcasts because it was a hot topic of
Yep.
like dealing that with that. Um, Unfortunately, as we've moved farther and farther away from COVID, we've fallen back in to our old patterns.
Yep.
Parents are very busy. Kids are in 5 different sports. Um, and it was just becoming where like I love it in the moment, like when I'm coaching a parent, but all that went into it to get a client. And then I'm rescheduling. I mean, right now I am finishing up with a client. We started a year ago,
Ooh,
10 sessions, and we're just now able to come and finish up. And it's just I could have made that shift to doing like online platforms and classes, and that did not thrill me at all.
yeah.
Something I could do, right? With my TV background, I could have pumped out all that. It did not feed my soul. So, I've just been it's been hard to let go because it's been such a wild an awesome ride. Like I'm still connected to parents that I've helped, over 5 years ago. Um, and it's like I'm slowly closing things down, but I'm telling you, the day that I do the permanently closed on Google, like even saying it now, like I get a pit in my stomach. It makes me really sad that, I'll have to do that. But in the midst of that, I've had this other business because I'm always doing stuff, helping people out. And I just
So, I'm gonna
really,
stop you before you
yeah,
dive any further because we're getting into the third one.
yeah,
So let's talk about closing down a business because I think this is an area that we don't actually talk about. So
yeah, yeah,
what had you not sell the business but to choose to close the business? So that's what question that comes up for me.
yeah. So the um part of it is I could have looked into selling my content. I've copyrighted all my content. And I had conversations about that. That is a long process,
Okay.
to find somebody who wants, will take your content. But once you sell it, it's no longer yours.
Right.
And I just don't want to give somebody that control over my content.
Okay.
And also, this is something I can always revisit. It doesn't go away. My content is still there. 10 years from now, there might be an opportunity again so I didn't look into selling it because I want to keep my content and
Okay.
have control over my
Respect that.
content.
Totally respect that. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. But it is like I really had to, because us entrepreneurs, like we're pull yourself up by the bootstraps, right? That's why you do what you do. You let yourself cry for a hot minute, but then you dust yourself off, you stand and you keep going. But what I was realizing with this one is because there was so much more creativity. It's all my content. Like I developed all the content, I built the study guide, I organized it. It's a program that I have to grieve.
Mm,
I gotta go through the grieving process. Like this is a loss. And I still struggle with that because I'm like, well, but I have this other thing that's growing and great. And I'm not doing myself any favors by ignoring that. I mean, I just look back, it's like I was on podcasts I mean, it was amazing. And to see it slowly decline, it's been a little harder because the other one was thriving and I
yeah.
made that choice to like merge it. And this one, I'm closing because it's not thriving. And it's
Hmm.
a really different feel, really different feel.
Yeah. And I like that you said it's kind of a grieving process because I think we look at oftentimes closing a business that's just done and over with. But I think when we pour our heart and our passion into what we're building and the fact that you created all the content, everything is really an original creation. There's this sense of like, I'm putting this down almost like I'm setting it down. So I can even see it over here on your face for those that are watching. Like you can feel that with you, Christine. It's like there's something in there. And I thank you for being emotional and vulnerable and sharing that because it is something that I don't think we as women discuss around having our businesses, especially
Mhm.
when we do shift or transition or something else pulls our attention. We feel like we're, letting people down or something in that respect. But
Yeah,
you
we,
did
we
very,
have a networking group at our chamber, and I've started like a little side group of when you're like when you own a business, you can't ever tell somebody it sucks, right?
it's so true. You
You
can't.
you're always up here. It's great, it's growing, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I've been doing this. And I realize, especially for us women, but now we have quite a few men who are meeting too, that you have to have a place to go, this really sucks. And I am really stressed out and I'm working really hard and it's not doing what I thought it would doing in a safe, like in a safe
Safe
place,
place.
right? Because
Yep.
you have to be careful with that because again, if people know you're struggling that hard, they're automatically going to like think they can't trust you. Like it, but it doesn't change your skill or what you're capable of doing, but it's just that whole idea of like, oh, why is it struggling? And they get more focused on that than what you're really going to offer. So I think it's like it's I it's just so challenging to stay up here like all the time. And we got to have those places go, okay, this was really hard and it really sucked and I'm not hitting my goals. And then brainstorm and figure some different things out and know that other people are too. It's been really, really great. And, too, mine has been, it's like, I'm struggling shutting this thing down. I'm just really, I'm just doing like one thing a month, like shutting it down. And oh, I just like, I don't know if you're out there and you're going into that process, it also hits your identity too, as an entrepreneur. I mean, we try to remember that my business isn't who I am, but god dang it, my business is who I am.
It is. It becomes our identity. It's like and I think for women, I find it interesting as we have these conversations, as I talk with more women, when we create a business, we birth it, just like we're birthing a child. There's so much that we pour into it. There's the growth of the business, there's the nurturing of the business. And I think there is that emotional attachment because we also, I find as women, we are more connected to humanity. We are really connected to the people that we're helping. Like we really do have that connection. So when we're closing a business, it does have that sense of grief, sense of loss in there. And so, yeah, that's something I don't even think about until you brought this up. I'm like, this is a really valid point because I've had to close a business and I don't think I actually grieved it. Like I felt like I just had to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's where I've been sitting, it's like I have this next thing, but I also got to pay attention, to this.
Yeah.
And, the other part that gets hard too is, when you get the why questions, and you have to admit it wasn't
Right.
making money. And then you get the, well, did you try this? And did you try this? And did you try that? And, I'm still getting the emails, you can make 60,000 in 2 weeks. I'm exaggerating,
Oh,
but
I
you
love
know those.
the AI emails that come out that they promise they can do everything, but they've never changed the business.
Yes.
Those are my favorite ones to
Yes.
get. Yes.
And, it's almost like, I've had some, people, and not like intentionally with
Yeah.
malice, but you get that sense of like, well, you just gave up. And
Oh,
yeah, and that's like hard because it's like, well, there's other things that you could do. And truthfully, there is, but I didn't want to do them.
yeah.
I didn't want to do them. Like as I said, with the content, like I get that all the time. Well, get on a platform. You're good at speaking. You can pump out content. You can sell that, do all that.
It sounds exhausting.
Yes. And I said, I like that human connection and like seeing the parents and seeing the ahas on their face. And it that's all I can say. It did not excite me one bit.
So let's talk about the evolution of this next. So first off, women, if you're listening to this and you're closing, actually, I've worked with a client who's recently closing down the brick and mortar side of the business, but is able to do more of the online version of her business. But that was a hard decision for her because there was mom owned the business. This building had been in her family for, whatever, and she
Oh
had to
gosh.
like close that down. So I'm excited to have her
Oh.
hear this podcast because I think that she'll definitely resonate this. So I know there are women out there that had to like reevaluate, readjust, shift things. So that you're sharing a lot of really good and like information and just, insight in your journey. So that's now we're talking, so we're bringing that one down, we're slowing that one down, but we're also ramping up another business, which is interesting because it doesn't do anything with children. It doesn't do anything with parents, and yet it lights you up in a whole different way.
Yeah, so with the background of being in the beverage industry, I learned a lot about marketing.
Mhm.
This is also one thing that I love to share with women is no matter where you're at, even if you're working in a, can I say bad words?
Of course you can. This is totally
Okay, if
accepted.
you're working in a shitty job,
Yes.
what can you learn? Okay, working for Pepsi was a shitty job. I was in great shape, but I'm hoofing soda all day. I'm sweating like a pig. It's like I work my butt off. But what I learned was marketing strategy and placement.
Yep.
Then I go to
The
Frank. I
ingredients.
learned more about that. And then when I have my promotional company, I know the importance of where we stand in the store, all of that. All of that that I picked up came into play when I started with my business. So I just want to put that out there because you can always learn no matter where you're at.
Yep.
So I was looking for, well, first I've helped friends with coordinate their weddings on and off for years, just because I've always had that organizational skills. And I had a friend's daughter who was getting married. I was living with her at the time, and I could tell they were getting really overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So I said, my wedding gift to you is I'm going to coordinate your wedding. So I went out to this venue, went out there and coordinated, got to meet the owners of the venue. They came to me later and say, hey, can we get your business card? And I said,
What business
they
card?
didn't have any kids. So I'm thinking my parenting business card. And I'm like, you guys want parent coaching? And they're like, no, like your business coordinator card. And I said, oh, I just do this for fun. They're like, really? You should think about it as a career. And I'm like, oh, haha, whatever, do the wedding, whatever.
Seed planted.
Yep. And then I was looking to make some extra income. And I thought, well, I really liked them. I loved the venue. It was beautiful. And so I just reached out to them and I said, hey, are you looking for any help? And they said, actually, our venue coordinator just gave us notice. We need somebody. They're like, we would love to have you. And I said, like, I'm in. So my first season with them, we had 18 weddings because now this is post COVID and everybody's playing catch
Coming
up.
out. Yep.
So we had 18 weddings. And again, this was I'm setting up chairs, taking down chairs, pulling trash. It is not glam job at all. But I'm watching. I'm paying attention to the weddings that don't have a coordinator and kind of what a shit show it ends up being. And everybody's stressed out because they don't want to forget what their part of the wedding they're supposed to do. Then I watched the ones that did have a coordinator. Like what did they do? What didn't they do? So I had like a full year of that. And then they said, well, we're just going to put your name and number on our preferred vendor list to be a coordinator. And I said, okay, cool. So then the
Oh.
next season, I had one hire me directly. And so learned a lot of how I wanted to differentiate myself and what I was doing. And one of the biggest things that all the brides remember is I always check on them and make sure they have a drink.
Mm.
Every one of them has said that. And you made sure I had a drink all night so they didn't have to wait in line. So you pick up on those things. And then it just started to snowball. Like people found out that I did it. So I did one in Chicago. I did a friend's wedding for free as a gift. Then her bridesmaid hired me. So that connected me to another venue. And it's just been kind of the snowball thing. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of making some serious dough. This other thing isn't. I think I need to start doing the flip. But it all came down from just like kind of paying attention and
Mm.
learning, and watching while I was doing the crap part of the job. And now I get to do the cool part of the job.
Yeah, and I think there's something about that because I'm very similar to you in that respect. Like I'll sit there and just observe, like what's working, what's not working, what do I like about this, what do I like about that. So I think when you can sit back and just observe and watch, and then also you're talking about pulling from your skill set, right?
Hmm.
Every job you've ever had from like the time you got a job taught you some sort of skill set
Yeah.
that as an entrepreneur you're going to bring forward. You're going to see what businesses and corporations do. If you have a corporate job, you're like, if I had a business, I wouldn't do this, I would do this. Like if you actually sat
Absolutely.
and looked at it, you would be like, wow, I could really do something amazing with this.
Hmm.
So the other thing that really stood out for me, and let's talk about this a little bit, you talked about, making your services available for free. Well, we did have the other business in the space, right? Now you're kind of, because the women, I want you to listen to this. This is your super secret power, and I think you all ignore this. You talked to one friend, got your first gig, another friend, you did it as a wedding gift to them. They led you, like, let's talk about the power of relationship and networking.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I think sometimes we want to like stay in our lane,
Mm,
right? When you network and breaking out and just going to like different unique experiences and then also not being afraid of talking about what you do.
mm.
So I think sometimes we stay in our lane and I'm only going to talk about my business when I'm at a networking event and not talk about it outside of that when you meet people. And I've gotten so much braver about
Compartmentalize.
because well,
Yeah.
I think we because like, oh, we're bragging. I think for us women, really learning the difference between like what's the difference between being arrogant and like promoting yourself. And I think women tend to get looked at as arrogant when we talk about things more than sometimes men would.
Yeah.
That
There's
I
still
could
a
be,
stigma around it.
yeah, yeah. And so for me, it has been like I had an opportunity and it was kind of funny. So at this wedding, so I also do like a little offshoot of MC services. So once in a while I'll get asked to MC an event. So I'm at the wedding and I'm in my lane. And my lane right now is to be the day of coordinator. They didn't hire a DJ. So I knew that I would need to MC like the grand march. I need to introduce the band and do some things like that. And so, I did that and I had a gentleman come up to me. So here's kind of the whole scenario. The reason they didn't hire a DJ is because the groom works at an AV company. So that's what they do is they do sound systems and everything. So they brought all their own. But I get it, you save money, but there's important pieces where you need to have somebody talking. So I told them that I would take that piece on. And then I introduced the band and stuff like this, and this gentleman comes up to me. He goes, "Man, you're really good at that. Introduced the band very, very well." And then the groom said something about their corporate event and goes, "Yeah, I think we need somebody who's going to talk at our corporate event." And I said, "Well, I do MC services too, so give me a call." that is like where I think maybe years past, I
Mm,
would have felt that that was unprofessional because I would have been like, I need to stay in my lane. This bride hired me. I'm doing the wedding coordinator. And now I'm just like, it was a casual conversation and they saw it. So why not throw that in the hat? It's like, yeah, I'll do I'll MC events.
yeah.
And that's where like I think it's helpful to never be shy to talk about what you do no matter where you're at, because you just don't know. You just
Yeah.
don't know what the needs are or who's listening, and just be braver about talking about that, or even like giving advice sometimes. I'll just like hear something, somebody talking about like an event, and I'll just like, hey, I heard you talking about an event. I don't mean to butt in. I am a day of coordinator, so I do a lot of event planning. I'm wondering, could I give a suggestion?
Yeah.
And then that just gets your name out there. So I would say, as far as networking, just be brave and kind of think outside of the box. Don't feel like you have to just stay in these lanes.
Yeah, I would say that's very true because even I always tell people networking happens anywhere. You can go join a group and learn how to bowl or ballroom dance or whatever, and there's opportunities to talk about what you do, and it's there because people want to know, and so say something. Like
Mhm.
silence doesn't grow a business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
you
And
know,
we're just like, oh, I don't know if I should talk about that right now or whatever. I mean, my son's wedding is coming up. You bet. I'm going to be talking about how, yep, I helped them pay for a day of coordinator because I know how important it is because I'm a day of coordinator. I'm going to
and
be
you don't
weaving
want to
that
be
in.
running. You
Huh?
don't want to be running his wedding event while you're the mother of the groom. Like that's not your role.
No. But
Yeah.
all the other people and friends and stuff who are there, I'm like, you can hire me.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about, I guess, the structure and financial. So, like when you opened your first business, you talked about doing the LLC. What are some of the things that you've learned that you continue to, implement or grow around, building these three different businesses? What are some of the lessons that you've learned from the back end side of it?
Yeah. Well, for one, what I didn't do on my first business is I wasn't really good about having like all the money was in a pot, and I would kind of guesstimate on things like how much I think I would need for taxes. And the one thing that I've gotten better about, and it can be annoying, but I do have separate accounts.
Mm,
Like I have separate accounts. That's my operating expense account, my owner's income account, my tax account, and then just where all the money goes into initially, and breaking that out. For me, that has been so helpful, and helps me make wiser decisions when
agree.
when I'm spending. It's like, oh, what's coming in and stuff, can this wait? The other big thing is, I'll be real honest, like I'm fully in menopause now, which is lovely. But at the time, one thing that I did learn, is I would not make decisions the week I was on my period.
Amen. Thank you
It
for saying that out loud.
Yep, because everything for me was more amped up. Like I could just feel it. It was more crucial. And I learned it's just like, nope, this is waiting till next week because I'm not going to make a good decision. And even now, like depending, I kind of look at it like if it's like around $100, like for advertising or something that I'm thinking about spending, I'll wait 24 hours. I'll wait a day before I'll do that. Anything over $100, like I'll wait a week. I'll wait a week, do a little more research, probably ask a couple people, like, have you had it? I have really had to learn, and it's hard too because you get those emails coming in all the time
Urgency ones. Yep.
about do this now, and it's not it's not that urgent. If you do have an opportunity that passes, I 100% guarantee you'll have another one.
Wait 3 months, it'll come back again. I promise you.
Yes,
3%
yeah.
it'll come back in 3 months.
big maturity lesson is
Yeah.
this learning to this pause and wait before making a decision. And the other part, which I would say even is more recent, because I'm so driven on meeting financial goals and things like that, making a self-care account, putting money aside in a self-care account. What I do is like really, really physical during the day. It's very mental taxing. And that probably it's been more recent, like over the last year, where I have been very diligent about putting money aside so I can get a massage, or here I wanted a new purse. So I got the new purse I wanted. It was been very satisfying, and paying attention to that self-care piece, and just making it another account where money just goes in there every month.
I love that.
Yeah, and then and the other is too is getting a good financial advisor. Getting wisdom on what to do. I was really kind of doing a tailspin and was really stressed out. I think I shared that with you when we were first talking. That the first gentleman was not giving me wise counsel, and now I have another gentleman who's like amazing and has just been really great in that. Um, so paying sometimes you need to pay for advice.
You do.
Really do.
Coaching is a key piece, I think, for a lot of us, and a lot of us women shy away from it because we think we can do it or learn it on our own. But I've
Yeah.
invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in coaching, and it's made the difference. It just works on mindset. It shortcuts a lot of the things I don't know, gives me access to resources I didn't know existed. Like, there's a benefit in having a financial advisor, paying for things. Like, it makes a difference.
Hmm. Yeah. And
So,
and your friend group too can be so important. Like today, I was just spewing off, I Marco Polo a lot with my friends. And I was just spewing off about, I was excited. I meet a financial goal and this is where I put it. And she got to chit chat and then she goes, well, do you know about this money market? I'm like, I do not know about that money market. And I forget, she's like a financial geek. Like I read stuff about like trauma and how to help trauma kids, and then she reads like financial stuff. So today I shifted everything. I opened up that account that's like 1.5% higher,
yeah.
way more flexible. I can get my money way out easier just because I was spewing off about it. And yeah, it's just like, oh man, just be open and honest with your friends and share that kind of stuff because you don't know what somebody knows until you
Well,
talk to them.
yeah, and I think as women, we need to start having more own honest and open conversations around money. Men do it anyway, right? So like when you
Mhm.
talked about, when you each need that time to vent, men have like the good old boys club and the things like that. Like they get to have time where they just get to spew it all out. And yet for women, we feel like we've got to hide it. And it's like we really need to be open about this. Fun fact for anybody that hasn't listened, and I might have mentioned this before, women only were able to open a bank account since 1978.
Oh, I didn't.
Was the first time that women could actually open a, I mean, there was other incidences, but as a whole collective, it was 1978 that women could actually open a bank account without their husband's signature. That's less
Wow.
than 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Less than, right? So when you look at our exposure to money and how to manage it and how it's going to impact our lives, we are the least educated around this. This is why I do agree with you, Christine, that, we as women, I have found an incredible group of women that are actually teaching wealth building because they recognize that it's a missing. So I went looking for women that I could actually have this conversation with
Uh-huh.
because it became important to me. Like I get it from the men, but sometimes I don't understand what the men are saying. But for some reason, a woman, and I think it's our teaching and our bringing information down to another level, we just kind of communicate on a whole different plane when we talk about what that looks like. Now I'm gonna ask you, and you can answer yes or no, but the banking system that you use, because I did the whole one pot method too. So that's a one thing. Is it the profit first strategy, or have you never heard of that before?
Okay, I've heard of the profits first strategy. I don't know if that's what I'm doing though.
You are. You literally are. Yep.
So yeah, I mean, this strategy that I learned was from a business coach,
Yeah.
of dividing that all out and setting up your percentages
Yep.
is, yeah.
Yeah, they were
So,
definitely influenced by it, whatever they called it. That is absolutely, it's the profit first strategy. So it's about having your income account and then it disperses percentage wise into your operations account, your owner's comp, your profit account,
yeah.
tithing account. So like however you want to break that up. But that was a big shift even for me when I started doing that with my business. I was like, why didn't anybody tell me this?
Yeah. Yeah. And it helps you make such better decisions.
Ooh,
And when you kept it all in one pot, I tended to not take money for myself. And then when you do it, it's like, oh, like I can pay me. Because I think when you're, especially when you're starting out with a business, you kind of, I know I had that mindset and I don't know where it came from, but that pretty much it's a grind and you don't get to pay yourself for
yep.
like the first 2 or 3 years is the mindset that I had. And then when I, got this business coach and we did that, I'm like,
Huh.
huh. And then I was like, man, and then it made me think as like, okay, what was I spending all that money on? I was spending it all on advertising. And then that slowed me down to start thinking about, well, am I getting a return on those advertising dollars? Right? Because I was just like, oh, you need to do this because, you're going to make millions of dollars and and when you had it broken out, I don't know, for me, it just started clicking to
Yeah.
like paying attention. I think
Yeah.
because there wasn't always money in that operating expense account. When you have one pot, it's all in there. You think you got to spend it on advertising, and when it's not, then you get much more strategic. So it was this like game changer on how I ran my business moving forward.
Yeah, same for me and same for you because I teach that with our women also when they come through and I work with them because I'm like, I can teach you how to make money. But what I was failing at as a coach for the last 10 years was teaching women how to keep the money. And
Hmm.
that's where I was like, I feel an obligation to kind of figure that part out for you so that, I can bring you some education around this because this is not a good, you shouldn't be on this six figure down, really like that's not a pretty
Yes.
roller coaster financially to be on.
Yeah, and no matter how much or little, and I think we just get so stuck in the numbers. It's like you should be paying yourself no matter how much the
Yeah,
business is coming in.
agree. If you're
And
paying yourself at least $1 or $10 or something, but you've got to be paying yourself. It's the mindset piece.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm kind of chuckling now because I'm thinking back to when I sat that down and I'm like going, this is great, like this isn't gonna work. I laugh now because I see how well it works, but I can remember that moment when he's like telling me this, and I'm like, I can't pay myself. I'm self-employed. What do you mean pay myself?
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny now to look at that hindsight and remember how I felt in that moment.
I don't can't pay. I can pay everybody else but me, and I can't tell you how many women I have coached over the years that have that comment. I've paid everybody else. I pay all my employees. I pay my independent contractors, everybody else, but I don't pay myself. I'm like, well,
Yep.
what the hell are you in business
I
for?
know, I know. But owning a business is great.
Yeah, and my business partner says, "Are you a charity? Like, is that what you're building, or do you really want to get paid for this?" And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah. So I know that we talked about it previously that you were working on kind of like a workbook or work page to kind of give away or to share with women as you've kind of
Yeah.
gone through this journey. So what does that look like at this point?
Yeah, so it's a great little it's PDF format that I send out. Something that I do like in all aspects of my life, whether I'm coaching a parent, talking with a friend. I do it. There's a Bible study group that I lead, and part of it we talk about money, and we do this in there. But the one thing that we often don't think about when we're thinking about when we're stressed about something, like something is causing us stress and we just feel stuck there, we can put together goals, right? Those goals to move us along. You're in coaching, I'm in coaching. Like that's the big thing, is to set those small goals and those big goals to move along. And, but sometimes it's like really hard. There still seems to be something in the way. And what I realized is there are feelings
Mm.
attached. And if we can understand what those feelings are and how we would like to feel, you can move along a lot quicker. Like when you have goals and stuff like that, you'll still get there. But I found this moves you real quick. So
Okay.
I'll just kind of give an example. I can talk to anybody, we're out and talking, but when I would have like a sales goal and you had to have like so many appointment sets and make so many appointments, that would just like make me like sick to my stomach. I wouldn't want to do it. And when I was doing the coaching and stuff, it was a lot of that cold calling and like reaching out, and I hated it. So I got out the emotional color wheel. And this was actually really good for my business coach too, because I pulled it out and I shared it with him because he was getting a little frustrated. He's like, what is like, we have this goal and you're not reaching it. What's going on? So I worked through it and we got to that emotion of, for me, it felt like abandonment
Oh.
was the word that was attached when I would get shut down during a cold call.
Mm.
So, of course, I'm not going to want to make these.
Yep.
But then you go to the other side of the emotional color wheel, the happy side, and you pick out like, how do I want to feel when I do this? And then there are these buckets, they're little buckets that you'll fill out, and you'll start talking about like, how do I feel? How do I want to feel? Are there people who are helping me feel negative? Are
Right.
there people that are helping me feel positive? And you'll work through these sheets and kind of write that all down. And what
Mm.
that does is it unlocks those feelings. And once you recognize them and you can name them, and then you know how you want to feel about it, you can put things in place. My simple solution really was is to be comfortable. People preach, don't have your office in your bedroom, don't do work in bed because then you can't sleep, blah, blah, blah. Do you know when I did my best cold calling? When
In
I
bed?
was sitting in my bed with a cup of coffee next to me. They didn't know where I was, but that was like my solution. I just felt comfortable. If I got rejected, I didn't care so much because I was like kind of in my favorite spot in the house. And once I figured that out, then it became a lot easier. Now, was what I recognized were some days a little bit bigger than others, especially like if I was on my period, were
Mm-hmm.
those amped up? And I would just say, I know I'm probably not going to meet the goal this week, and that's okay, just because I know all this stuff is going on. But then I would find I'd kind of make up for it the next week.
You would.
So,
Initially, and it's interesting when you talk about that because that's one of the things we dive into with women from my side is how to follow your cycle. And I have another friend of mine that's actually tracking sales for women when they start making their calls or they're bringing in business, when they do it during their follicular and ovulatory phase, the first 2 weeks right after their period, they actually close more sales because they're more communicative, they're higher cognitive thinking, and they can really read their prospect in a much different way than you can during your luteal and in your menstrual phase. You are
yeah,
dead on. Even if you felt that intuitively, you're dead on because now science has proven that without a doubt that
yeah.
that's actually what we deal with as women.
Well, you're crabby and you're uncomfortable.
Why would you want to like make an offer? You can barely think at that point, too.
Yeah, this is like no. So yeah, I created this thing. It's you can rock yourself. Definitely reach out to me if you would like to just partner and kind of talk through it. Currently I'm building the new website and that part isn't on there yet. But just I know you're going to share my email and stuff.
Yep.
Just reach out and can walk you through it. But it can really be a game changer when you just verbalize the negative, because we tend to keep it simple. It's like, well, I feel bad or I feel
So
sad.
much more than
But
that.
when you can get into those deep, like abandonment, like, and I was like, okay, I get that, right? It's like you don't want me. And because of my childhood trauma, that felt like abandonment. Are they? No. And then I could consciously kind of talk that out and then do that spin of like they just don't need that service right now and that's okay.
Yeah.
It could be They just don't like me, and that's okay too. So have those, you know, good conversations that keep you going.
Yeah. There's so much juicy. We have to wrap this up because this is such a juicy conversation. And I know, Christine, we could probably talk hours on this
Absolutely,
conversation.
absolutely.
Um, but I just want to like have you ladies, if you were listening to this, there were so many did she really say those moments that I invite you to listen to this again, right? Like I think with Christine, first off, there is a marketing aspect to her. When you work with behavioral, you know, with children's behavioral and you're working with parents, there is an intuitiveness and a knowledge that she really shared in here that you might have missed that I invite you to come back through and listen with new ears. And then as we talk about business and that evolution, I hope you're hearing grace in what she shared with you and just the grace to be, to move through, to grieve, to try something new and really expand who you are. Fill up the space that you have in this world, right?
Mhm.
Don't shrink into it, really expand into it. And I think Christine you're just a beautiful light and presence for that. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
saying yes and being here with us. It's just been
Yeah.
an incredible conversation.
Well, I appreciate it and I love sharing. And if somebody can move along a little better, be a little bit braver because, of my story, that's just what this is all about. I know for you too, it is.
Yeah. Well, definitely reach out to Christine. Her information will be down below in the show notes, wherever you're listening to. Connect with her. If something she said resonate with her, follow her. Because you just never know what those connections are. As we talked about, relationships and opportunities come out of the weirdest places, but
Absolutely.
it's being there that really creates something unique. So
Mhm.
if you're enjoying this conversation, definitely comment on our episode, give it a rating. I would love a 5 because that would just tell me that Christine's conversation rocked with you. And, like, just stick around because you're going to love our next episode of Did She Really See That? We'll see you there.